Hey, students and parents, at this point, you should have watched the Running Start information video from the colleges so that you get an idea of some of the information that's going to be helpful before you start navigating this process. What I'm going to be covering in this quick video is just the high school side of the Running Start information that you're going to need to know before moving forward. Just as a quick summary, just some reminders of things to think about before you make a decision of whether you're going to access Running Start or not. Uh, First and foremost, Running Start is not for everyone. It is a wonderful program, but it's not made for everyone. It's not every 16-year-old is prepared to be able to jump into college classes in the college environment. So first and foremost, a student should be prepared to be self-reliant if they're going to be accessing Running Start, which essentially means being able to navigate this process without parental help. That doesn't mean that the parents can't be involved and encourage the students, but the students are the ones that need to be reaching out to the Running Start office if they have questions, reaching out to their professors. Parents actually should not be doing that. I mean, actually, there's FERPA laws that prevent parents from being able to reach out to professors anyways. So just make sure that the student is prepared to be self-reliant and be able to navigate this without parental help. Second of all, a student should be prepared to be around adults. And I know that sounds a little interesting, but the reality is regardless of the campus that you pick, whether it's SEC, Spokane Falls, or Eastern, all of those schools are going to have adults. So not just students over 18, but sometimes it's going to be students over 20 or over 21 or over 24 that are going to be in the classes with them. And so students need to be prepared to be in an adult environment. They don't want to stick out like a 16-year-old or a 17-year-old. They want to make sure that they're able to handle themselves like an adult because they're going to be around adults. And then finally, a student should be prepared for a lot of homework. Now, I do want to make sure to mention that it doesn't always happen that all of the classes are going to have an extreme amount of homework. However, students need to be prepared for that. We've had several students that are trying to access Running Start while working a full-time job. Typically, that's just not possible. Some classes are going to easily be able to generate 15 to 20 hours of homework a week. So you need to be prepared to be able to handle a lot of homework. So now again, for all those three reasons, Running Start is not for everyone. Again, it is a great program, but it's not for everyone. A couple other things to just keep in mind as little reminders. Each grade that you earn in the college impacts your high school GPA. So if a student does poorly, or even like if they go into Running Start with a 4.0 and they get an A minus, well, that's going to affect their high school GPA. There's no choice of that. So if you're accessing Running Start, just understand that that does happen. But the other thing is each grade earned at the college impacts your permanent college GPA as well. And then if you transfer to another school, that grade will follow along with you and it will impact your GPA at your next school as well. Also, if you do really poorly, which hopefully no student is going to do, but occasionally this does happen, that could impact future financial aid opportunities for students to be able to access. So make sure, again, the student is prepared to be able to handle this. Make sure that they understand that it is a high reward program, but it's also a high risk program. So students need to be prepared. Now, when students are making choices about the scheduling, what classes they're going to take, obviously the student gets to choose that and they can choose however rigorous of a course load they want to take. However, one thing that does happen at the beginning of the process is students will get a list of the graduation requirements that they have remaining, and they're going to want to manage that as they go through Running Start. So as you go through the scheduling process every single quarter, make sure students that you are looking at what graduation requirements that you have left, that you end up checking off the ones that you've already completed. And then what you do is you look at the course equivalency guide. You see a couple examples of those there. Those classes on the course equivalency guide are the only classes that will meet the graduation requirements of the high school. So make sure that you're choosing the right class, not one that just sounds close or one that is a close enough number. Close enough doesn't work for Running Start. You need to pick the exact class to meet the high school graduation requirement. So just make sure as you're going through that scheduling process that you look through that you pay attention to that course equivalency guide, and that you make sure that you are meeting all of your graduation requirements. Again, high school counselors are great resources to helping guide you on which requirements that you need to take. As the student starts scheduling their classes, this will be a sample schedule that they might experience. Again, this will be actually fairly typical for a first year student. Some students go into Running Start and they need to take a class at CV. Not all students do, but like if you still need to take Algebra 2, you need to take that through the high school, not at the college. And so maybe you take one class at the high school all year long. That allows you to take 15 credits at the college each quarter. You notice here on the sample schedule, students start off with taking English 101, which account for part of your English, Political Science 202, which is civics, History 136, which is US history. Then the next quarter, they take three very different classes because classes don't last an entire year. And you notice there in spring too, this student maybe needed a full credit of PE, so they took a 3-credit health class, a 2-credit fitness class, and together that's 5 credits, which would come back to the high school as a full credit. All that information is located on our equivalency guides and stuff like that. But just understand, every quarter you'll have a different schedule at the college, even if your high school class stays the same all year. You just need to make sure that you're not going over the maximum number of credits. And so a lot of students will ask, well, is Running Start free? Well, yes or no. Number one, you don't want to go over the maximum number of credits that you can take according to the high school classes that you are taking. So if you're taking either 0 or 1 classes, you can take 15 credits at the college. It's roughly 3 classes. If you're taking those 2 classes at the high school, that does impact the number of college credits, and you can only do 12. And then so on, and you can see the chart there. So what does Running Start actually cover? Well, the high school will end up paying the tuition if the forms are submitted correctly and if you don't go over the maximum number of college credits that your high school counselor tells you that you can take. But what is a responsibility of the student is any fees, mandatory fees or course fees that come out of Running Start, and you need to pay those every quarter. The books are a student's responsibility to pay for. If you're on free or reduced lunch, there are some resources for you, but the student does need to manage that, as well as transportation. Now, students do get a free bus pass by going to SEC, Spokane Falls, or Eastern. However, if the student is going to drive to campus, with any of the 3 campuses, they need to have a parking pass, and so they'll need to end up paying for that parking pass. Student will need to pay for gas if they're driving, or if they're carpooling, contributing to gas. So anyways, so yes, the tuition is paid for as long as you don't go over your maximum number of credits. And it is not completely free because the student will be responsible for some of those charges like fees, books, and transportation. Now, let's talk just real quick about just some pitfalls, some ways that students can make Running Start be not successful. Number one, first and foremost, is too much parental involvement. I am what I sometimes consider a little bit of a helicopter parent myself. However, when my student is going to access Running Start, that needs to be their responsibility. They're the only ones that can communicate with professors. They are the ones that should be communicating with the Running Start office. It is their responsibility to do this. Parents, you need to be able to trust your child to be able to navigate that. If you cannot, then maybe you want to think about either holding off a year and just doing Running Start for the senior year, or holding off permanently and waiting until they graduate high school. Another thing, those students, is while I understand email tends to be pretty inefficient in how it actually works, college runs on email. You need to be checking your email probably at least twice a day. Professors communicate through email. The Running Start office communicates through email. Sometimes the other offices will communicate to you through email. Make sure that you are checking your email often. Also, make sure that you're communicating with professors if you're struggling in the class, or if you have questions, or if you need to access office hours, or even like if you get sick, make sure to communicate with professors. If you get behind, communicate with your professor. So make sure to do that. Don't just assume that they're going to be flexible with you. That's not often the case unless you communicate with them. Also, not reaching out for help. There are so many resources on all 3 of the college campuses to be able to provide you assistance to get through online coursework or homework or writing center or math labs or all sorts of things. Make sure that you reach out for help. Don't miss deadlines, because that could prevent you from being able to take the classes that you want. If you don't pay mandatory fees, you probably won't be able to register for classes the next quarter. So make sure that you're watching your student account. Also, make sure to understand you cannot take a math class at the college until you've gone through placement. All three of the college campuses handle their math placement separately. So make sure that you follow their process about getting math placement, whether that's through a placement exam, whether that's through a transcript evaluation or something like that. But you can't try and sign up for a math class until you've gone through placement. Also, another pitfall is if you earn less than a 2.0 GPA in your college classes, because that could affect your ability to accept financial aid later on. Make sure that you're prepared to be able to keep your grades up. And then the last thing is some students really struggle with feeling separated from high school or their friends at the high school. Now, on the other hand, some students choose to do Running Start because of that, because they don't care about that. Um, Regardless of where you're at, you need to access the high school or your friends or stay involved as much as you feel like you can. So just understand you are going to feel separated from it. And if that's okay, that's great. And if not, again, that should go into your decision making. Now, one more little thing about final thoughts. So I do want you to know that when you go to look at all three of the college campuses and which one that you should choose, understand that the education quality will be very similar across all campuses. Um, and so you're not looking at all three of those campuses about which one's the best school. That's not necessarily the case. You're not going to be able to find an answer for that. However, you do want to look at which one's the best fit for you according to the location or where you're going to transfer after high school or all sorts of other factors. And then finally, if you have questions, I would always encourage all students to reach out to the Running Start office as their first stop for any questions that you have. The reason for that is they'll be able to direct you to the right place to get help instead of you trying to figure that out. All right, let me just cover our process real quick. Now, our process all starts in Google Classroom. So what we ask our students to do is don't rush to go do the applications yet. Instead, you're going to join a Google Classroom, and the Google Classroom will show you each one of the steps and we'll lay it out to make it as easy as possible for you. Now, keep in mind, only students can join the Google Classroom, but you're going to log into your school account, and here's the Google Classroom code for Ridgeline High School students. So again, if you're going to be going to Ridgeline High School, this is the Google Classroom that you're going to join. If you're going to be staying at CV next year, here is the Google Classroom code that you're going to use in order to join. And then again, what the Google Classroom will do is it'll walk you through the 4 basic steps to get into Running Start. So the first thing is welcome to Running Start. It's a video and a form that you're going to fill out that gives us a lot of contact information. The second part is a high school agreement where you're going to read through some important things that you and your parents need to know before doing this. The third part is going to be the actual college application, and Google Classroom will give you kind of the basic steps and the links to be able to do that. And then after you get done with the college application, you're going to be meeting with your Ridgeline High School or your Central Valley High School counselor. So those are the 4 basic steps. Those are all laid out very simply inside of Google Classroom. We do want to give you one final reminder about that whole process, which is as we go into registration for this year, make sure that you register for a full schedule at Ridgeline High School or CV. Just because you're wanting to do Running Start, we always tell students, we'll change the schedule later, but you need to have a backup plan. You need to have a full schedule of classes that you would take if you had to stay at the high school next year. What would you take? So make sure that you do that. Again, it's your backup plan. I want to give you one final point before we kind of wrap up. And that is, you have a lifetime to do college, students. You do. You have a lifetime to do college, but you only have 4 years to do high school. If the high school experience is important to you, if hanging out with your friends more casually like high school students do is important to you, I would encourage you to not rush into this. You'll have a lifetime to be able to do college. You don't need to rush into it while in high school. If it's not important to you or you're not enjoying your experience, maybe this is the right thing. I just don't want you to feel like you're missing out or you're rushing into the adult world just to be able to get free college. Free college is not a good enough reason to access Running Start if it's not a good fit. So again, you have a lifetime to do college, but you only have 4 years to do high school. Make the decision carefully. To wrap up, here's our contact information for all the counselors here between Ridgeline High School and Central Valley High School. If you have any questions as you go through the process, please make sure to reach out to any one of us. We're here to help support you. Otherwise, welcome to Running Start and good luck through the process. Remember, it all starts in Google Classroom.